President Donald Trump has announced he plans to suspend all immigration into the United States. And almost immediately, Democrats have called him the xenophobe in chief. They have smeared him. They say this is a distraction. Donald Trump failed on the coronavirus, and now he's trying to distract all of us. Or some say that maybe it's because oil prices are collapsing, the economy is in dire straits, and Trump must distract us from what's really happening. The classic Donald Trump move. And while I'll admit, it actually is a classic Donald Trump move to tweet something bombastic out to try and distract us, there's another point that should be made here. Donald Trump may actually be just taking advantage of the chaos. Since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, Trump has been able to do a bunch of things he's wanted to do. Maybe not necessarily always wanted to do, but certainly things he wants to do, and no one stood in his way. In fact, they argued he should use more executive authority. But here's where it gets funny. Donald Trump suspended travel from China to the U.S., I believe this was January 31st. And the Democrats and the media said Donald Trump goes too far with his travel ban. Well, only a few days ago, we heard from Bill Maher and many other people over the past several weeks saying Donald Trump's travel ban doesn't go too far enough. So sure enough, when Donald Trump then expands this to the logical conclusion, ain't nobody coming in this country, they now call him a xenophobe. There's clearly nothing this guy can do that they're going to agree with. Now, you can argue immigration and travel bans are very different, and that's fair. But if you're going to complain that people can still come into this country because they have passports, which is what many of these Democrats were doing, well, then don't be surprised when Trump says, you want it, you got it. We're going to shut it all down. They say he's just being xenophobic. But you called him xenophobic when he banned travel from China, and now we have the coronavirus pandemic. You're calling him xenophobic again? If every single thing he does is wrong, certainly you must be wrong, because Trump should be right on some things, right? And here's what I find funny. When they claim this is a distraction because of the coronavirus, they mention, I got one story from the Washington Post that Donald Trump's polls are falling. And we've seen this from CNN to the New York Times, Trump's worst polling ever. And it's interesting because Donald Trump's polling is actually pretty good. It's slowly trending up. It dips, it rises, it slowly is going up. And even Joe Biden is adopting Trump's rhetoric on the travel bans. And some in media at The Atlantic are calling him out saying, why would Joe Biden try and beat Trump on China? Trump's been tough on China for a decade. So now we have this very confusing Democrat narrative. Donald Trump will be suspending immigration, so he's a xenophobe, but Joe Biden agrees that he should have banned more people, so he's weak? Look, man, I don't know what you think is really going on. I don't know what you want the man to do, but I'll tell you one thing. Y'all are confusing me. So here's what we're going to do. Let's break down what the New York Times says about Donald Trump's intentions with suspending travel, and then we'll work through what's going on with the latest cycle with commercial ads of Joe Biden. I mentioned this a couple days ago, Joe Biden now accidentally going full MAGA. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate. If you would like to support my work, there's several ways you can give. I don't have it pulled up, I probably should. But the best thing you can do is actually share this video. I'm competing with the mainstream media. YouTube props them up on their front page. They make it much harder for channels like mine to succeed while they give all of the advantages to the mainstream press. But there's one thing that is more powerful than YouTube's algorithm, and it's you choosing to share my content, if you really do like it. Otherwise, don't worry about it. But also make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and hopefully YouTube will recommend my content to you. But let's get to the news. Trump plans to suspend immigration to the U.S. The president portrayed the measure, his most wide-ranging attempt yet to seal off the country from the world, as a bid to save Americans' jobs amid the coronavirus pandemic. I mean, that actually makes sense, right? I mean, unemployment is through the roof. We probably shouldn't have more people coming in to take our jobs. Now, I don't know about tourism immigration or marriage immigration, but let's read. The New York Times reports President Trump said on Monday evening that he intended to close the United States to people trying to immigrate into the country to live and work, a drastic move that he said would protect American workers from foreign competition once the nation's economy began to recover from the shutdown caused by the coronavirus. In light of the attack from the invisible enemy, as well as the need to protect the jobs of our great American citizens, I will be signing an executive order to temporarily suspend immigration into the United States. In recent weeks, the Trump administration has used health concerns to justify aggressively restricting immigration. Even before the tweet, it had expanded travel restrictions, slowed visa processing, and moved to swiftly bar asylum seekers and undocumented immigrants from entering the country, alarming immigration advocates who have said that Mr. Trump and his advisors are using a global pandemic to further hardline immigration policies. Full stop right there. They're calling it a distraction. They're saying Trump is xenophobe. But this has been Trump's agenda the whole time. Now, you can insult him and call him hardline, far right, whatever. But it seems to me that Trump isn't necessarily distracting us, although it is a key Trump move to do. Seems like Trump is taking advantage. And you know what? He's kind of rubbing it in their faces. You want to complain doesn't do enough? He'll go all the way. And now you're going to complain about that? He's just made you look like a fool. And the American people are going to see it. Is this a distraction? You know, at first I said it really does seem like Trump's making a desperate move, throwing red meat because the oil prices are tanking, and this is bad. There's going to be a major ripple effect, crashing our economy. And then I actually read how the New York Times reported it, and I was like, wow, it actually seems like Trump is just doing what he's been doing, and I've said this from the get-go. Trump is getting so much of what he wants. He's shut down the borders of Canada and Mexico. So you want to talk about Trump securing the borders? He's bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., things he's wanted to do for a long time. The president is getting what he wants. You can call him all the names in the world. And even if this results in Donald Trump losing in November, he's going to make ridiculous gains in a short amount of time. Let's read more. They say, the president's late night announcement on Monday signals his most wide-ranging attempt yet to seal off the country from the rest of the world. A formal order temporarily barring the provision of new green cards and work visas could come as early as the next few days, according to several people familiar with the plan. So I guess if there's no, just green cards and work visas, so tourists can still come? I'm pretty sure they can't, but let's read on. Under such an executive order, the Trump administration would no longer approve any applications from foreigners to live and work in the United States for an undetermined period of time, effectively shutting down the legal immigration system in the same way the president has long advocated closing the borders to illegal immigration. It was not immediately clear what legal basis Mr. Trump would claim to justify shutting down most immigration. Workers who have for years received visas to perform specialized jobs in the U.S. would also be denied permission to arrive, though some workers in some industries deemed critical could be exempted from the ban. The people familiar with the president's discussion said, the number of visas issued to foreigners abroad looking to immigrate in the United States has declined by about 25% to 462,444 in the 2019 fiscal year, from 617,752 in 2016. Several people familiar with the president's plans said the Department of Homeland Security was separately weighing a large expansion of travel restrictions that already prohibited travelers from Europe and China. The restrictions would significantly shrink the number of people able to come to the United States for short-term visits, and it's already gotten a lot harder. So again, I'm going to throw it back to the criticisms when they insult Trump and say he's not going far enough. Bill Maher just did it. He was complaining that American passport holders, maybe he just didn't understand what he was saying, but Bill Maher threw this line out that many people have in media, that 40,000 people came from China after this ban, and he said it wasn't airtight. Well, that's a problem beyond the Trump administration. I mean, it was people with green cards and passports. They're allowed to enter. They were arguing, Bill Maher was arguing Trump didn't go far enough. Now he's going as far as he can. Even just regular travel, it seems. They say Mr. Trump and his advisors have argued inside the White House that doing more to bar people from other countries from coming to the United States, either for short-term visits or to live and work in the country for longer periods, could help limit the number of infected people who arrive from potential coronavirus hotspots around the world. And they argue that it could relieve pressure on the American healthcare system. I'm sorry. They're right. You can criticize the motivations, the ideology, whatever, but China has seen reinfections as people return from abroad. Now, that's even further than what Trump is saying because that's China's own citizens. But there have been tourists, I don't know if they're necessarily tourists, but there have been people coming back to China after they lifted lockdown who have been infected, and there have been reinfections. That resulted in China actually locking down again. If you look at that and look at this in context, I would say Donald Trump's taken advantage and he's getting a lot of what he wants, but there are real reasons to do what he's doing. Not that I necessarily agree completely if this goes beyond the short term. Thinking long term, we really got to make sure that these policies and these emergency powers are restricted, are limited. They say Mr. Trump's primary focus appears to be on protecting American workers as the virus ravages what had been a rapidly growing job market. Even before the pandemic, the president and some of his most hardline advisors had been eager to reduce legal immigration, arguing that Mr. Trump's America First campaign pledge should be seen as protecting native-born Americans from having to compete with foreign workers. This is interesting to come from CNN. From the New York Times. It's interesting because the New York Times has been, critical of the president and his policies and his agendas. But to say right here that it seems like his focus is protecting American workers, I actually agree. The Democrats don't, however. Now let's get into the fun stuff. Xenophobe in chief. Democrats blast Trump's plan to suspend immigration to the U.S. The president could sign an executive order closing off the country as early as next week. This is from NBC News. Congressional Democrats slammed President Donald Trump after he announced that he plans to suspend immigration to the U.S., arguing that such a move does nothing to protect Americans from the coronavirus and deflects attention away from his handling of the outbreak. House Democratic Caucus Chairman Hakeem Jeffries tweeted that Trump is the xenophobe in chief, and he's got periods between each word. This action is not only an attempt to divert attention away from Trump's failures to stop the spread of the coronavirus and save lives, but an authoritarian-like move to take advantage of a crisis and advance his anti-immigrant agenda. We must come together to reject his division, tweeted Rep. Joaquin Castro of Texas, Democrat, chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. I actually agree with the second part of that. I don't think well, you could argue both. I think it's fair. It depends on how critical you get. Does Trump really need to distract us from the coronavirus? No, not at all. His approval rating has been going up until the media actually took attention away. I would argue that the media was successful in their campaign when they said stop showing Trump's press briefings, because Trump was seeing great numbers. Take a look at this. While Trump was doing his press briefings, his approval rating started from 40 on March 7th and peaked around 50.6, going positive with his disapproval down. If anything, Trump wants more attention on the things he's doing to protect us from the coronavirus, which is why I think it's not a distraction. Donald Trump's announcement of an immigration ban is highlighting what he's doing. I think he wants the attention back. Look, if the media came out and said Donald Trump didn't go far enough, so he goes as far as he can, he's going to get the press attention. The New York Times says he's trying to protect American workers. This is good for the president. Call him a xenophobe, call him whatever you want. But if you keep ignoring the fact that he's making these gains, you will lose. The Democrats are fractured, and I think that's why they will lose. We got this tweet from Stephen D'Souza, who says, on Trump tweeting about suspending immigration, Bill de Blasio says, what I saw was bluntly and very sadly just a brazen political move by the president. He's going to his all-time favorite distraction, immigration, which he uses as a campaign weapon all the time. You don't get it. He does distract. He does. But he wants the attention right now. He wants people to see what he's doing. Trump did a whole video series trying to prove he was taking this seriously. And the latest criticism is that he didn't go far enough. Let me show you this article. The utter futility of Biden's China rhetoric. The Democratic candidate tries to out-hawk Trump, but trying to beat Republicans at their own game is pointless, even dangerous. Joe Biden just came out with an ad saying Donald Trump didn't do enough to restrict travel. Donald Trump flips the script and goes all the way out. They call it a distraction. They're blind from what just happened. Their own party tried claiming that Trump didn't do enough. Trump just stole the narrative back. And in the eyes of the American people, as reported by the New York Times, Trump is actually helping the American workers now. Here's what The Atlantic writes about Joe Biden. If he wants to attack Donald Trump's response to COVID-19, Joe Biden has an embarrassment of options. The presumptive Democratic nominee could slam Trump for ignoring his own advisor's warning about the potential severity of the virus. Biden could skewer the president for his administration's inability to develop a coronavirus test. He could blast the Trump administration for failing to adequately stockpile PPE. He could condemn the large quantities of misinformation that Trump has propagated about the disease. For the moment, however, Biden has chosen a different angle. He's attacking Trump for knuckling under to Beijing. Yesterday, the Biden campaign unveiled an ad filled with menacing images of Chinese soldiers claiming that Trump rolled over for the Chinese. It follows another spot paid for by the pro-Biden super PAC American Bridge 21st Century, depicting the incumbent as a stooge for Beijing. Everyone knew they lied about the virus, China, a narrator declares, against the backdrop of a fluttering Chinese flag. President Trump gave China his trust. On Friday, the Biden advisor Anthony Blinken told reporters that the president praised China and President Xi more than 15 times. Sure, you can argue the president was trying to be diplomatic. But Donald Trump wants to suspend funding for the World Health Organization because of the misinformation that slowed our response down as well as Europe's response down. I don't get what Biden thinks he's doing because he's propping up Trump's message. So I ask you again, do you think Donald Trump is trying to distract everybody from what he's doing? Or do you think he's like ripping his shirt open and yelling like Alex Jones and waving a flag saying, look at me, I'm doing something about this? If the attacks against him are that he doesn't do enough, he just went well beyond. Here's what they write. The Biden camp's logic is easy to understand. Trump has made China the primary scapegoat for his failures. His supporters are running ads under the hashtag Beijing Biden. So Biden and his strategists are meeting fire with fire. They're answering the charge that the former vice president is soft on China by saying that Trump is. This is absolutely insane. I'm sorry, man. They go on. This form of ideological jujitsu comes naturally to Democrats of Biden's generation, who in the 1990s tried to turn the tables on Republicans who had been painting them as anti-business, anti-military, and pro-criminal during the Nixon and Reagan eras. In 92, Bill Clinton ran for president, promising to cut taxes. In 2000, Al Gore proposed to spend more on the military than George W. Bush. In 1994, after successfully shepherding Clinton's crime bill through the Senate, Biden crowed. The liberal wing of the Democratic Party is now for 60 new death penalties. The liberal wing of the Democratic Party is for 125,000 new state prison cells. I'd like to see the conservative wing of the Democratic Party. Wow. You know what it says to me? I've often pointed out that Donald Trump ran as a moderate. That's not my opinion. That was coming from Matthew Iglesias of Vox.com. When Trump stepped up to run for president and said border security, something Democrats had long championed, he was playing by their strategy to take their narrative and use it, forcing them to counter. And thus the joke is, if Donald Trump came out in support of oxygen, Democrats would hold their breaths. Or, more worryingly, if Donald Trump cured cancer, they'd find a way to spin it negative, and then you have this potential treatment for COVID, and yeah, the media and Democrats sure made it negative. But what we're seeing from here in this Atlantic story is that it's par for the course for Democrats. Donald Trump just used the same strategy against them, and they responded the exact same way. Or, I'm sorry, they responded in the opposite. Instead of adopting those policies, try and win them over, they went all the way in the other direction. Now, Joe Biden is trying to go back to the way things used to be. I'm going to take Trump's policy and beat him at his own game. This has to be the most insane thing I have ever seen, as I mentioned in the previous video. But I'm not gonna harp too much on this because you get the point. I did a whole video on this. Check it out, youtube.com/timcast, the channel you're on. I got the whole video about it. They're nuts. Let's talk about Donald Trump's strategy and how he's going to go after the Democrats. Yes, he's going after Joe Biden. Yes, he's saying Biden is soft on China. But man, do you gotta see this commercial. This is what I call shockingly good strategy. Nancy Antoinette, Trump campaign ad, hammers Pelosi for having ice cream show and tell while small businesses ran out of money. When I saw that Joe Biden commercial trying to claim that Biden was better on China, I laughed. Trump has been smeared as a xenophobe for his harshness against China. You think you're going to beat that message? I'm sorry, you're out of your mind. Now, here's what we get. Nancy Pelosi went on some late night show with, I think James Corden is his name. And she says something like, the Republicans wanted $250 billion in 48 hours. Not going to happen. She then shows off her $24,000 freezers full of all this really expensive ice cream. And she's like, I don't know what I would do without ice cream. Hee hee hee. The Trump campaign put a commercial together showing regular working Americans, people who have lost their jobs. These people show off their empty freezers saying, I don't know how long, we can last. We're suffering. We need help. And it shows Nancy Pelosi laughing. And then it says, quote, let them eat ice cream. Nancy Antoinette. Now that is a slam dunk political ad. I'm sorry. Look, man, this is just reality. Joe Biden thought he was going to beat Trump at his own game. You're nuts. But pointing out these Democrats are millionaire elitists. And Nancy Pelosi blocked the stimulus package, the expansion, which would have given small business loans another $250 billion. They ran out, by the way. He shows her laughing, eating ice cream, while people around her suffer. And she says no to the money they need to stay in business. Yikes, man. That is powerful messaging, I tell you what. Now look, Joe Biden can't speak properly. The media is lying and pretending this guy has the capabilities to be the president. He mumbles and rambles on TV, and it's sad and scary. And the media runs defense. They complete his stories for him. He'll mumble and mutter, and then some story will pop up saying Joe Biden has an astounding plan to combat, this, blah, blah, blah. Here's Joe Biden's plan for Medicare. It's not his. The dude can't articulate these thoughts. It's his team doing it. Why they're defending him, I have no idea. I don't think Joe Biden can win, but there is one way he might. I don't believe Joe Biden's really running. He's a placeholder for his VP. Many people suspect as much. Some people have jokingly said it's going to be Hillary Clinton. I don't think it's going to be Hillary Clinton. But there is one person it could potentially be. And I think if he chooses this person, you probably have already guessed by now, he could actually win. And I seriously mean it. If it's true that Joe Biden is a placeholder and Michelle Obama joined his ticket, you would see Obama Biden, then Trump Pence, then Biden Obama. I think that would win. People really like the Obamas. They really, really do. They are still some of the most popular politicians in the country. And I get it. Conservatives don't. But you got to understand, a lot of people would flock full speed to Michelle Obama. Will she actually take it? I don't know. And it's not a guarantee they're going to win. Some people might say we're well past this. 10 million, about 9.4 million people, I believe, who voted for Obama switched to Donald Trump. Would they switch back with Biden in the driver's seat? I don't know about that. I do believe Michelle Obama will rally the Democrats, will help unite the party, and it would be one of the smartest things the Democrats can do. So Trump supporters, take this seriously. Now, Joe Biden says he'd take her in a heartbeat. That's the quote. But he does go on to say, I don't think she has any desire to live near the White House again. Biden said he's still in the process of deciding whom to pick. He again committed to choosing a woman, but did not commit to choosing a woman of color. He says, I'll commit to that. It will be a woman because it is very important that my administration look like the public, look like the nation. And there will be committed that there will be a woman of color on the Supreme Court. That doesn't mean there won't be a vice president as well. The former vice president, who served under former President Obama, has previously said he would like Michelle Obama as his running mate. At an Iowa campaign stop in January, he said he sure would like Michelle to be the vice president. She's a woman of color, and she's an Obama. That's a path to victory for the Democrats. Will they take it? I don't know, because Biden is in the driver's seat. Now, I'm going to get a little dark. Joe Biden, I'm not saying this to be callous, but I don't know how much time the man has left. And I mean that, honestly, he's beyond the average life expectancy. I'm not trying to be mean. I think it's time for the man to retire. He's having trouble speaking. He doesn't have the ability to do this. So maybe people won't see him as in the driver's seat, but then who would be the VP? If Joe Biden appoints or chooses Michelle Obama as his running mate and then bows out due to health issues, does she just become the Democratic nominee and then pick a new vice president? Is it possible that she could be the first female president? I mean, it is. But that would be one of the most outrageous circumstances we've ever seen in this country. The president, too old, gets chosen, gets nominated. The presidential nominee, then bows out. His VP, the wife of the previous administration before the current one. That would be nuts. But let me show you one last funny thing. And it kind of breaks my heart to see it, but hey, what do you expect? This is a new poll. National correspondent for NBC News, Steve Kornacki, tweets. In a new poll, 41% of Democrats say it bothers them that their nominee will be a white male in his 70s, and 59% say it doesn't, by race. White people say 49% it does bother them. 51% say it doesn't. Black people say it bothers them only 28%, and only 30% of Hispanics are bothered by this. You have a very large contingent of white people who are, well, I'm going to say bigoted, to say the least. They are bothered that the nominee will be a white male in his 70s. Well, okay, let me be fair. I'm bothered by that too. Not the white male thing, the 70s thing. I think it's time the media pony up. Just admit to it. Stop playing these games. Joe Biden can't do it. Everything you've thrown at Donald Trump, you have missed his plan, his plot. You can't see it. Donald Trump might not be playing 4D chess, but he's certainly playing chess while the Democrats are playing checkers. I'm not going to pretend like Trump is this super genius mastermind, but he's got a strategy. He's got smart people around him, and what he's done has worked so far. Now, it is true that Trump is seeing his polls go down, all right? A story from the Washington Post, most rate Trump's coronavirus response negatively and expect crowds will be unsafe until summer. This is from a Washington Post, University of Maryland poll. But it's one poll, and I'm very careful to highlight just one poll. Because the truth is, while Trump may see bad news, ultimately his polling is still trending upward. It's fluctuated greatly in the past couple of weeks because of COVID. But while Trump was speaking to the public, his polls were skyrocketing. So the media cut that off. They realized it was working. So they called him a liar. They said, because of this, we won't show it anymore. Well, we know that the New York Times lied to protect Biden. We know CNN lied about Chris Cuomo being in lockdown. So who am I supposed to trust right now? Honestly, I couldn't tell you. But Trump has a higher approval rating, according to Gallup, than the media does. So yeah. And according to, I believe, CBS, Trump's trustworthiness is 1 point higher than the media. So they cut him off. I think Trump wants the attention. I think he's going to get it. And I think that's the immigration plan. Let them call it xenophobic. Let them call it a distraction. But Trump has been winning this whole time. Here's the proof. When he got elected, the media went after him. His polls were in the high 30s, low 40s. Over the past several years, Trump has been winning over the public and his approval rating has been climbing. So if Donald Trump was able to win with 46.3% approval in 2016, and he peaked around 47.4 recently, or higher, I believe 47.4, 47.3. We'll see how things play out in the next several months. If we come out of this one unscathed, Donald Trump they'll look to him like a hero. It's also possible that if we're stuck in this disaster, people will be too scared to see change, and they'll say, Trump's got to see this through. That's the battle. It's not the Democrats versus Trump right now. It's Trump versus the media. The media is finishing Biden's sentences for him because the man can't speak. The media is smearing Trump, taking him off the air. It's the media versus Trump come November. We'll see how things play out. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCast News. It is a different channel. And I will just lightly address, you may have noticed I'm in the van because I'm traveling right now in the van. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you all in the next segment.